And we are live. My name's JP Berg, and this is Dumb the Wiser, the show where we try to make sense of a mad world. Canada specifically, we are in a descent into tyranny, communo-fascism. Can't say just communism because it's not. It's communo-fascism. Bill C8 and C9, which are being introduced by compromised members of the penetrated cabinet. They represent Canada's transitioning into a totalitarian system. C8, introduced by Melanie Joly, will give her, as minister, the express ability to take you off the internet if you're deemed a threat. And she can make this discernment with no oversight and no legislative process. She can make that determination and kick you off of the internet. It's not just atrocious, it's shockingly directly tyrannical. And then we have Mr. Sean Fraser. Sean Fraser got out of public service. He was done with it. And then for some odd reason, I'm assuming because he was desperate to work with the central banking WEF member in Mark Carney, but he decided to come out of retirement. And now he will be introducing Bill C9, which is a reinterpretation of hate legislation. Hate being a subjective determination. They want to make an ambiguous legislation that they can essentially levy at any opposition. That's how this stuff works. All of this will work as it has in the UK with Keir Starmer. Canada has definitely has a good idea what's coming, because I mean they're implementing the same agenda. Keir Starmer and Mark Carney, they're not politicians as we've come to understand the term. They're essentially political constructs. They sloppily regurgitate scripted rhetoric to the peasantry to provide the optics, to provide the illusion of participatory governance. But, I mean, they're just implementing an agenda. But the Online Harms Act in the UK has resulted in tens of thousands of British citizens being arrested for thought crimes, for social media posts. That's not hyperbole. You could vet that yourself. I challenge you to. We're just coming into like Orwellian level dystopia. And there's so many people that are trying to warn. But most of these voices are buried. They're buried under the culture war grifters. They're buried under the people in Canada selling the uniparty. Canada, we have the entirety of the corporate press in Canada is controlled. It's either directly state funded like the CBC, or it's heavily state subsidized. So we have no independent voices in media. We have no alternative voices. We just have narrative. They just disseminate the narrative. But then when you come on to the online ecosystem, when you're on social media, when you're on X, TikTok, YouTube, what I see is the same thing. I see a bunch of shill types. All of the conservative media online is controlled opposition. Not only Pierre, but all the shill accounts that prop him up. Pierre is quite clearly controlled opposition. Just the fact those bills I mentioned, which sincerely do transition Canada into a totalitarian hellscape immediately. He's not mentioned them once. He has the second biggest podium in the country. The official opposition leader. He should be on every show talking about this, not, acting cool and eating apples. This dude ate an apple last year and asked an arrogant journalist a clarifying question. And the Canadian conservative electorate are still absolutely enamored by this. This was the ultimate act of defiance from a Canadian perspective, evidently. So we have Dominic. Good afternoon, listening while working on the house. You're one of the minority in the country now that you have a house, a home to work on. Most of us can't enter the housing market. That's not jealousy neither, brother. I'm happy for you, and I'm happy that you're listening. And this reminds me, we just got going here. We got about 70 people watching. So if I could get you guys to all share this, it's immensely advantageous. I'm very deboosted. I usually get between 1,500 and 2,000 views on these episodes. That's around the average within that window. And my last episode, I got 600. So, I mean, now it takes a couple of days to get up to that, but like I'm going, they're just burying me deeper and deeper. But that's the name of the game. I could get on here like the truck driver pleb or floating head Mario and start culture war grifting. I could start telling you guys that Pierre Poilievre is the only hope and don't split the vote, man. But none of that stuff is true. And it despite what it does for my popularity, I didn't come here to make friends, and I didn't even really come here to garner followers. I came here to see the truth, to find it out. And once I got on X a couple of years ago and determined that all of these big accounts that people are falling for, all of these so-called independent accounts were totally synthetic and it's totally fake, I figured I have to get in here. I started calling them out as best I could with my very meager platform. And most of them block me. So I figure I'll just get on here and start talking shit. But in all seriousness, I'm not that adversarial. I'm not looking for trouble, but I sincerely feel right now Canadians are looking around their neighborhoods, they're looking around their cities, and they're just seeing things get worse. The grocery bills getting more expensive, the rent going up. If they're lucky enough to own a home, there's a lot of things with that as well. But I mean, they're finally realizing that look, this corporate press, the news media in Canada, I'm not getting an accurate version of what I'm seeing. So they're very apprehensively venturing online to these platforms like X. And who do they encounter right away, propped up like they're independent? Just a bunch of cheerleaders for Pierre Poilievre. I'll tell you guys something. The media, the functional premise of the media in a democratic system is it's a foundational pillar of a democratic system. And they're intended to have integrity and impartiality, but they're supposed to condense the complexity of our political system down into a digestible summation that they can then inform our electorate with. And then the electorate makes a good decision. Like that's how the media works ideally. We've never seen that. We have just narrative disseminators. They shouldn't call it the news in Canada. They should simply call it the shit the regime wants you to believe. That's where we are. But they get on here and they fall for these cheerleaders. Look, you have to at least feign a modicum of impartiality or objectivity if you're going to criticize public servants. And you should scrutinize public servants. You shouldn't pick one and just advocate for them. That's what we have in Canada. We have a media situation where the corporate press are entirely funded by the Liberal government, and they push that side of the uniparty. And then all of the independent press are funded by the Conservative government, the Conservative party. So, I mean, you're just getting cheerleading and worshipping from various sides of this. You're getting no real reporting. You're getting no scrutiny. There's some big things occurring. Number one, namely, and this takes a precedence, it's this globalist legislation. I say globalist legislation because we've seen this enacted in the UK. And its functional premise, the way it will function, will be the same way it is there. Any deviation from the rigid and radical orthodoxy of the ruling class of Keir Starmer's government will be construed as mis, dis, or malinformation. Any relevant criticisms of their mass migration policies, their weaponized mass migration policies, will be construed as hate speech, and dissent will not be tolerated. Ultimately, they want it to work in a fear. They want a disincentive to be entirely psychological, right? Like talk to someone who's from China or Iran or any authoritarian society, North Korea, ask them how much they publicly criticize the regime or the government. Seriously, it doesn't happen. And that's normalized, right? Of course not. You would know that, right? But in the West, it's not supposed to be like that, but now it is. And they want it not just implemented, they want it normalized because they don't want to have to clog up the courts with a bunch of political dissidents. They want us all to shut the fuck up and behave. And that's where we are. We're either going to do that or we're going to start to resist this in some meaningful capacity. So we got 92 people. I will ask again if you guys could please share this. It helps me a lot. I'm buried underneath all the low IQ pablum that the algorithm seemingly favors. It's never been this bad. Like my numbers just fell entirely. So we got MS8719. I'm your friend. You are indeed, my dear. And good afternoon to you. So yeah, I want to talk about that integrity, right? Because I see some of these people straight up call themselves independent journalists. And what they do is they post hypermasculine AI pictures of Pierre Poilievre and they interpret him like he's the second coming. Like it's truly like sometimes when I see it, when I'm scrolling, the vomit hits the back of my throat and I can taste it. It's that like disgusting to me. I mean, my God, it's bad enough the state of our state-funded media, but the fact that the Canadian alternative media is just owned as well, like it's hard, man. It's hard, and that's why Canadians are amongst the heaviest propagandized, the heaviest ideologically subverted population in all of the Western democracies, at least in all of the Commonwealth countries. Now, the UK is farther enough with the agenda, farther along down the road with is the agenda being implemented. Clearly, you could see that. I think you actually have to become Islamic when you land in London. They make you convert, or you have to pay the non-Muslim tax. But in all seriousness, the demographic changes that our countries have seen over the last 15 years are phenomenal. They've what the weaponized what mass migration has accomplished. It's balkanized our electorate. It's decimated our economy because they utilize this weaponized mass migration in conjunction with a Cloward-Piven strategy. Now, Cloward and Piven were Marxists, and their strategy is predicated on destabilizing a society. So they facilitate this weaponized, this influx, this migration with social programs. And that has an effect to decimate our economy. And that's what we're seeing. Furthermore, unless you're going to reinforce the infrastructure, immense infrastructure reinforcement projects, like we're going to build 100,000 homes, we're going to ensure there's, thousands of more doctors, we're going to ensure there are jobs available for all of the people that are coming in, because they didn't. So it's created an absolute scarcity in our housing markets and our rental markets. Home ownership is not for working Canadians anymore whatsoever. We're renting out of necessity. We're stuck renting, and rental rates are absolutely astronomical. I'll give you now. This is anecdotal. This is my experience in 2020 in the building I'm living in, a very working class area of the HRM. In 2020, a 2-bedroom unit was $900. That was decent. That was normal still in 2020. Presently in 2025, that same 2-bedroom unit goes for $2,400. That's absolutely nuts. And that's where we're at. So, I mean, and then the most detrimental part is this balkanized our electorate. Now, what does that mean? It means it factionalized the Canadian electorate. We're not like, how can you unify an electorate and to make some substantive changes against your government if we have various special interest groups? That's why all these fake politicians are dressing up in cultural garb to pander for votes, because they have to. They have to. There's powerful voting demographics that vote together, and they absolutely insist upon being catered to. So, I mean, This is what this weaponized mass migration has accomplished. I don't even believe they know how many people are in Canada presently. Another thing it's done is all the corporations, all of the businesses in Canada are addicted to these temporary foreign worker programs. That's stagnating the wages of working class people. And like again, I often say all of these things I'm describing in Canada, they have been implemented across all of the Commonwealth countries and the vast majority of the Western democracies. They weren't implemented at the behest of a willing electorate. There weren't large groups of people screaming for these changes to be made. This was a complicit ruling class. This was a public-private partnership. Our politicians sold us out to oligarchs. Essentially, they took over and subverted our institutions. And you could say that's sensational. I have no tangible evidence, but with that said, we're at the point now where there's such a preponderance of circumstantial evidence that indicates what I'm saying, that you're not paranoid to see these externalities influencing our systems. You're kind of naive if you can't see them. But if this was happening in a vacuum in Canada, you could say, hey, it's incompetent politicians, it's very poorly thought out policies. There could be a logical explanation. The only thing our political class is good at in Canada is making malfeasance look like incompetence. But I'll tell you what they're doing is they're efficaciously implementing the agenda that they're supposed to be. And that's what's going on. You have controlled opposition, Pierre Poilievre, who feigns opposition, providing a pressure relief valve for low-resolution Canadians that aren't paying that much attention. And then all of their shill CPC influencers, they're programmed with certain lines to spit out about any potential third party. Look what happened to the PPC. They threw the kitchen sink at the PPC. The establishment was petrified. I believe Pierre Poilievre was preemptively propped up in order to give the optics of a populist voice, of a more conservative populist voice. And it was just sloganeering, feckless rhetoric the whole time. But the whole thing was right away. Maxime Bernier works with the Liberals. He's trying to split the vote. He owns a home in Florida, and that should matter. So the best bet we had to get an independent voice in our parliament was gone. Now the PPC are still around. I'm actually supporting them. I'll probably get a little more involved when an election is called, but it doesn't matter. The electorate has been convinced. The narrative is out there. I guarantee you, I have people. If I check these comments right now, I'll have people saying, "Oh, PPC," and laughy faces and stuff. Like, it's hilarious, man. These people think they're independent thinkers. They think they could see what's occurring, and they're on here literally regurgitating the lines they've been programmed and conditioned to believe. It's wild. It's wild watching all of this, really. But we got about 140 watching. So if you guys could all share it, like it, interact, give us some questions. I'm not getting too many questions here. We have Alicia. How do we have hope in this? Well, I wouldn't have hope in this per se, but you got to have hope in general. A lot of people accuse me of being a big black pill. It's like, why? Because I don't accept the parameters of the illusion. I don't accept Pierre Poilievre or the CPC establishment uniparty offering any substantive change. I'm also aware that Harper kind of initiated a lot of the things that Trudeau continued with. It's your classic controlled opposition style thing. Think of the electorate as a herd of sheep, right? And you got two herd dogs. And this one dog is so nasty and scary and snarly that he scares the herd over to this dog to protect them. And that's all they see is this dog. They don't see any other option. They don't see that they could run past that dog and actually be free. But they go to this dog, and then this dog inevitably gets scary, and we go back. My whole lifetime observing politics has been us defecting from the blue team to the red team and back and forth. And nothing ever changes. The trajectory never alters. We're just going directly towards more centralized control. That herd of sheep that is the Canadian electorate are going into the fence. And the fence in this instance is technocratic totalitarianism. Social credits to go scores, 15-minute cities, digital IDs. That's what's coming. And again, it sounds sensational, but that's what they're rolling out. So these are sensational times we're living through. And if you don't see that, you're not looking or you're in denial. So MS8719. Most of these Orwellian bills come from think tanks and not parliamentarians. Yeah, 100%. Big roundtables of oligarchs and technocrats where they sit around and think of clever ways to subjugate the electorates of the Western democracies. The biggest thing a lot of people have realized and woken up to since COVID, especially, is that our countries aren't super democratic. We lived under an oligarchy since the 1960s entirely. We were influenced by this oligarchy since 1913. When the world reserve currency, America, they decided to let the central bank in. They let the Federal Reserve Act pass. It's funny, we never had the First World War before we had a central bank Federal Reserve System. During World War I, the head of the Central Bank of America and the head of the central bank in Berlin were brothers. So go figure, right? But I mean, I don't have to go that deep down the rabbit hole. Like in the 1960s, after Kennedy's assassination, it got worse. I believe every subsequent American administration had to play along with the deep state. And here we are. Clearly, there's been some factionalization. I believe this ruling class has factionalized, and there's different sides of this now. And we're all being just whipped into a frenzy. Domestically, geopolitically, it's pretty scary. Like the UK is a tinderbox right now. And what I worry is like the British citizens are being pushed into a corner, and their reaction could be weaponized against them immediately. Surely they're expecting some civil unrest. Keir Starmer's government is just going to utilize this reaction to further demonize and discredit them as being far right. And we'll see the same tactics play out in Canada. In Canada, they're desperate to silence people speaking against the regime. Like they know their only hope is to control the narrative entirely. And the only way they could do that presently is with censorship legislation, which is ultimately what C8 and C9 will accomplish for them. So it's pretty scary. We're living through 1984 or Brave New World. It's Huxleyan and Orwellian at the same time. Not good, that's for sure. Parliament is just the tool to enforce them. Yeah, essentially, the whole apparatus, as I see it, is to provide a modicum of an illusion of participatory governance. We think it's real. And the way Canadians get so tribalistic about politics, they get in their little political teams. And if someone has like a legitimate criticism of your leader, you do not offer a substantive refutation. You don't offer an explanation for the criticism. And you know you don't. You know what you do. You jab back. You shit on their leader. It's like they're hockey teams. At the end of the day, guys, like these are public servants. We should scrutinize them, not put them on a pedestal and worship them. And that's why we're in this situation. Ultimately, the Canadian electorate, you know, it's on us. Now, to be fair, we've been, like I said, the most heavily propagandized, conditioned from our school curriculums with lots of Marxian precepts, inundated with these fallacious framings. And then broader pop culture, Hollywood, Netflix. You're not watching programs, you're being programmed. And you see it, man, and they make it entertaining. Of course they do. Why? Because you're more susceptible to being propagandized when you're being entertained, when you think you're being entertained. But yeah, that's where we're in a situation now, and where we're in post-modernity in some real way. It's such a secular society that many people don't believe in evil as a concept. So if they don't believe in evil as a concept, they can't see evil all around them. And more concerning, they can't see the evil that can be within them. Um, so we're really like profoundly lost. So we have Wolf Raylius, but they aren't public servants. That's their camouflage. They are meant to be public servants, but we live in a crown colony. This must be understood before all analysis. Yeah, well, I think that's pretty much what I was saying the whole time. Not only Canada, neither. I mean, all of the Commonwealth countries are under the Crown Corporation, but there's other countries that are going along with this agenda too. So there's oligarchical class. I mean, Carol Quigley referred to them as the network. This encapsulates the deep state elements, the Federal Reserve, central banking systems. There's a network of elites that coordinate with each other they've rigged the game and they stay there. I truly believe that. And again, I have no proof. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole on it all. But again, I will reiterate the assertion that if you see this right now, you're not some kind of paranoid conspiracy dude. It's more indicative that you're naive if you're not seeing this. Not exactly what it is. I mean, that requires some research, but like that there are external powerful forces that are playing with our politicians, using them as puppets. But yes, I entirely agree with that, Wolf. But I look around at some of the homelessness I'm seeing, and you hear is so many people that are very, I guess you would have to say, left leaning, and they think that it's compassionate. They believe like I live in a city where the parks are full of tents, and there's neighborhoods you just can't go near because the homeless people have dominated. And it's like, well, it's the compassionate thing to do to let these people just wallow in their misery and perpetuate to degenerate in public spaces. It's not good for the community, but it's especially not good for these individuals. It's absolutely the opposite of compassionate. It would be compassionate to help them, to get them off the street. If they're drug addicted, get them in a program. If they're not, figure them out in some way. Like it's shocking to me to see it and to see the normalization of it. And not in some hippy dippy way, like but we need hospitals, we need facilities. We shouldn't just be like setting these people up. And then there's projects in all of the urban parts of Canada where they have these temporary housing units, these tiny little mobile housing units where they're actually putting these people in homes. They're letting them live there and they're letting them use illegal drugs there. They say they're not, they still are. It's just wild. It's wild to see the people in these cities just accepting that level of degeneration. Like you can't access your parks. There's ball fields that are full of tents. And it's not like we don't have to tolerate this. We don't even need new laws. We don't need to become fascists to clean this up. And cleaning this up helps these individuals. It's the worst part. I seen this lady the other day. I'm not quick to give these people because I know a lot of them are just drug addicted and the city is letting them live there. There's an anarcho tyranny element to it too, right? They don't enforce the laws, so we have to live amongst it. But I won't get into that. But you see it all over the place. So I'm not like I see young people all over Halifax with signs. I'm on my way to work. I'm fat and in my 40s. I get off my ass and work. But I mean, I see these guys and clearly they're whacked on they're addicted to things. They're very likely mentally ill too. And they have a sign. Like, I'm not going to perpetuate that. I'm not going to participate in that person's killing themselves. I'm not going to do that. But sometimes I see the older people that are clearly disadvantaged and I'll throw them a few bucks. It's hard not to, right? I'm not some kind of a crass individual. It's the opposite. My argument that I'm making, very poorly, I might add, but the argument I'm endeavoring to make is that it's not a humanitarian play to let these people just congregate in our public spaces and utilize illegal drugs. We're not doing them any favors. We're killing them. If anything, like, we have to force them off of our streets. They have to go into a facility to get help, or they have to go to jail. And if they get, like, we have these laws on the books. We don't allow vagrancy. We don't allow that kind of stuff. We don't allow solicitation all over the streets. And it's not compassionate to do so. But that's just one of the many things that have been on my mind lately. The proof is the evidence of our own eyes and ears. The purpose of a system is what it does. Yeah, 100%. And that's where we're at in Canada, right? We've been so ideologically subverted. We've been so conditioned to be subservient. They give us shit and we eat it, essentially. And we're all scared too. I'm not trying to trivialize it all, but that's to the extent where we're gone into full Orwell mode. We refuse to believe the evidence of our eyes and ears. We reject it. The party's most essential command, and that's where we're at. We believe whatever they tell us. And furthermore, we won't believe anything that's not pushed by one of these institutions that have been lying to us for decades. That's where we are. Like, to come out and say this is such a radical, subversive thing for Joe average Canadian to hear. And it's time. You guys got to hear it, man. You guys have to hear it if we have a prayer. So we got about 200 watching now. I will ask everyone if they can share this again. It's helps me a lot. Super deboost it. Most of my friends on here with far bigger accounts than me are super deboost it. And then I see the shill accounts are like just killing it with action. It's wild. Granddaddy-o, speaking of homeless, we used to have a beautiful waterfront. It's now an open-air drug gallery. They use the fountains to bathe in and do laundry. They set up logs near the river and use it as an open-air shithouse. I kid you not. It's like the third world. I believe it. I'm not even sure what city you're from. Maybe you are from the HRM as well, and you're talking about the Halifax waterfront. But it's everywhere, man. It's in every urban area. And it's just disgusting, and we're not being compassionate for tolerating it. It's quite to the contrary. We're being just reprehensible human beings to walk by this and to not look at the broader systemic things that are causing it. But namely the drugs, but I mean, just beyond that, our attitudes towards them. You look at the safe supply and how that's gone. Look in BC and some of the numbers associated with it. I think even David Eby himself has come out now and said, like, whoops, big mistake on that whole legalize the drug thing. I mean, who would have thought that would be a problem? Seriously, though, these are some of these progressive policies that are, it's just, they're so intuitively, like your intuition right away is just shocked. There's, it's almost incredulous that these people could be so naive. Let's just legalize all drugs and give them to drug addicts. That's going to do wonders for the individuals addicted, and it's going to do wonders for the community more broadly. And we've seen that play out, right? But it's not an easy fix, and I'm not trying to trivialize it as an easy fix. I'm just trying to say people that try to rationalize this within the framing that it's compassionate to let these people wallow in their misery and perpetuate their degeneracy with drugs in our public spaces, I think these people are just, there's no other word for it but ignorant, just profoundly ignorant. Yeah, Granddaddy, I do remember you saying you're from the HRM before. But yeah, that's where we are with everything. It's every day it's something else. Every day these fake accounts. It's like I believe there's an election close. Number one, seeing that debacle with Doug Ford releasing that ad in the American market. I do apologize for my beast of a dog. Someone's walking by my window. How dare them? But yeah. I think he's done now. So anyway, from Doug Ford, with this big debacle, releasing that Reagan quote, that putting that on the American airwaves, that was the biggest blatant act of poking the bear I've ever seen. So what that tells you is that action was intended to solicit the reaction that it did, to elicit the reaction that it did, and that was Trump, raring at them. Now it's more tariffs. There's no negotiations, and that's what they wanted, because Trump boogeyman has been their play thus far, and it's been immensely efficacious because Canadians just fell for it hook, line, and sinker. It's wild. It's like Stockholm syndrome, but it's a little worse, right? I refer to it as Ottawa syndrome, where it's like you don't just have some sympathy or some empathy for the people subjugating you. In Ottawa syndrome, you're proactively participating in your own subjugation. That's what we have in Canada. It's next level cuckery. No joke. But that's about it for the questions. And I keep these pretty short, these live episodes through the week. I will be back with Thumb the Wiser. It's every Monday and every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, at 1 p.m. Eastern. Don't mind me. The time zones get me confused. I'm not that smart, hence the name of the podcast. But I want to thank you guys all for watching and sharing and interacting. And I'll see you guys on Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. My name's John Paul Berg. This is Dumb the Wiser. Cheers, guys.